Hey there, welcome. I'm Amrita from Atria Jewelry. Today we're going to make this chainmail bracelet. Now this is a variation of the traditional chainmail where we usually use only jump rings. Here we're going to use 3 styles of different links to make this bracelet. Materials I'm going to use is 16 gauge copper wire. And for tools we're going to use 2 pairs of bent nose or chain nose pliers, a flush cutter, 6-step looping pliers, a jeweler's file or a metal file, and a ruler. So to make the 3 different links, we're going to use the wire right off of the spool. As always, we're going to first flush cut the end of the wire, and then we're going to use the 6-step looping pliers to make the infinity loops. So these are infinity loops or the number 8 loop, and I might use those terms interchangeably. It's the same thing. I'm using the 4th step of the looping plier to make those, and that will form the bulk of the bracelet with the jump rings. So I made my first loop, which is a P loop. Then I move my pliers outside the loop and make a bend in the opposite direction, and I push that wire right up against it, and we make a number 8 or an infinity loop. Then I take my flush cutters, and with the flush side towards my finished link, I will snip the wire. And that would be a completed infinity link or number 8 link. So we're going to make a bunch of these. I'm going to make one more here so that you see what I did. Again, 4th step of the looping pliers. I'm going to go around till it touches itself to make a P loop. Then I'm going to bring that out around and then roll it in the opposite direction. Bend this up against it and wrap that around. And then we're going to snip that off. So we continue to do that. So that's one set of those links. And then we're also going to make jump rings. So I'm going to use that same step. But now when we make the loop, instead of the loop, the end touching itself, touching the wire, we are going to coil it. And that way I feed the coil as this continues to go up the top, but our coil will stay the same size. Let's see, it's struggling to focus there, but yeah. So we continue to just twist the wrist and continue to make that coil. It's okay if we make a few extra jump rings. You'd rather have extra than less, but you can always make up some more. So this is where we would traditionally put this coil into a clamp and use a jeweler's saw to cut down one row. And so as you just cut down these, it will form those jump rings with flat ends. Now, not all of us have jeweler's saws, so I wanted to show you what you can do if you don't have one. You would use your flush cutter. You would flush cut the end of that first, and make sure it's as little as possible. You don't want too much wastage of the copper wire. And then flip your pliers around so the flush side is now facing you, and cut that next piece. So now each of your jump rings will have 2 flush ends that will line up well when you close them. So we continue to do that. Flip it around, cut off that jagged end, flip it around and cut the flush end towards that jump ring. And we go. That's the second one. So I'm just going to do that for the rest of this. So now we have a bunch of jump rings. So that's our second link. And then for the final link, this is to finish the bracelet. And we want to make the bracelet adjustable. So I'm going to make those same infinity links, but with the third step of the looping pliers instead of the fourth. We're going to snip that off. We're going to do 3 of those. And then we're going to make these tinier jump rings to connect those 3 into that bracelet chain at the end. So I'm going to use the second step to make those jump rings. So we're just going to make 3 of those. I flush cut that already, so I'm going to snip that off. There we go. And then for each of these, we will close those out and straighten the number 8. I'm going to set those aside for later, and we're going to work on the main bracelet. I will cut the rest of these and be right back. And there, we have a bunch of these cut and then the jump rings. Now I'm going to open up the jump rings and keep them ready. That will speed up the process. You can use 2 pairs of pliers. I just find it easier to use my thumbnail on one hand and the pliers on the other to open up those jump rings. I'm actually going to spread them out a little bit so it's easier to grab. So our aim is to get the bracelet to be about between 6 and 7 inches and then have some adjustment space. So there'll be a little length of chain that can make the bracelet adjustable. So now to make those links, I'm first going to attach this jump ring through the infinity loop by passing it through both the loops, and then close out that jump ring. You can use 2 pliers, or you can do what I just did and squeeze those ends together. That's going to be one end. And then we're going to take another jump ring, pass it through the other end, and then connect the next infinity link and close that out. I'm making sure I'm squeezing that tight, and so that's the start of our bracelet. And again, hold that on there, slide on the jump ring, and then attach the next link. And if you see that it isn't closed properly, here's your chance to do that. And close that jump ring. So we continue doing this. So I'll put on some music for you and we'll come back in the end. There we go. The bracelet's coming on. Well, just a few more to do. So we need a few more jump rings. I've run out, so I'm just going to make a few more. Now we have 6 inches for the bracelet. That's going to be like that. We're going to attach the links on one side and then make a hook for the other. So again, take the 16 gauge copper wire, flush cut the end. So now I'm going to use the first step of the looping plier to make the initial loop for the hook, and then use the third step of the pliers to make a hook around that. And instead of closing that loop out, we're going to snip that down here and then bend the end up a bit and make sure that that is aligned and straight. And now I'm going to file this. Just run your finger on it to make sure it's not going to catch anything, and finish it off. So on one side, I'm going to open up these jump rings and connect those infinity loops to the bracelet and close those jump rings off. And that's the chain on one side. On the other end, we're going to connect the hook to that jump ring by opening it, and then we're going to twist it close, and that's the hook. And that hooks on to the chain at whatever length you'd like it, and the bracelet is done. If you like this video, please like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one. Have a beautiful day.